Welcome to the Made Together podcast, the engine behind modern game development. I'm Sam Carlisle, co-founder of XDS Spark, joined by Carla Rylance, chair of the XDS Advisory Committee, head of programming at XDS, and head of business solutions at XDS Spark. So every other Thursday, we break down how it works, who's doing well, and what it takes to create games together. Hello, Carla.
Hello again. How are you?
I'm not so bad. I'm not so bad. I had a trip out to Croatia just 3 days ago. Got back a couple of days ago for Expo Gamer. Right on the coast. It was a small event, but it had some really great speakers there.
How small is small?
I like measured in the hundreds small.
Yeah, nice.
Um, yeah,
Intimate.
but a nice mixture of B2C and B2B, and they had like a business track, and so I like it when cosplayers mix with XDev and developers and
That's
stuff like that.
so fun. Nice.
A very beautiful part of the world as well. But yeah,
Lovely.
we had some great people over there. Um, had a panel with I think I mentioned it last week. Had a panel with Arun from Supercell, Nico from Housemark, and Jackie Clark, former PlayStation and Keywords.
Hmm.
And yeah, we had a good little rant together about what's going on in the industry. It was great. It was really well.
Good. Do you think that you had some of the reboot develop? Was it reboot develop blue that used to
Right. No, I
be
don't think
there?
it benefited from it, to be honest. And I think there's rumors of a reboot, but this time in Split,
Hmm.
in Atlantic Split.
Oh,
Not quite sure if and when and what that comes together like, but there could be something new brewing there. I don't know if it'll be a reboot or just involve some of the people who were involved in the first reboot. But yeah, definitely be up there. But that's
intriguing.
my second trip to Eastern Europe in 2 weeks, and I've got a third one in another week or so going
Which one's
out.
that?
Jeff
Lucky for.
Gam in, I know, Gev Dam in Gdansk. So God
Hmm.
bless economy cheap fares across Europe because it cost me about the same to get to the airport as it cost me to fly to Gdansk from the UK.
No way.
I know what are you going to do?
Oh my
Um,
God. Well,
but
that
yeah,
sounds fun. Very nice.
yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. I think it's again great crowd there. I see Junie there from EA. I haven't seen Junie in a while. It's always a pleasure to see her down there. Doing a little bit of mentorship as well as checking out the event all up. So if you see me in Gdansk, please say hello.
Oh, yes, definitely. What's been
And
going
you
on in the world of XDev this past
this week?
couple of weeks?
So we mentioned that Arrival had hired 3 people from Sony. Well, last week they hired one from Xbox. So they've now got a bit of balance to the force, right?
Yes.
Um, so that's good. So it's going to be there, and he's come up to head up their co-development. So it'd be interesting to see how they step in. It's Christoph from who was also part of the central team that I was a part of at Xbox. We have a fair bit
Oh,
of crossover at that time at Xbox as well, which is great. So again,
amazing.
looking forward to see what they do.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Seeing what's going on there, how they're growing and evolving. We've got lots of cool people on board. It's very
do
exciting.
we had, and this is just it's kind of anecdotal, but there seems to be more hiring going on in the XDev world. There seems to be more hiring in general. Like
Mm.
the developers seem to be hiring for external positions better more, and I'm seeing suppliers as well hiring for artists and kind of like and those kind of roles, which I feel has been quiet for quite a
Hmm.
while.
Yeah, it looks as though you've got a fancy tracking document, haven't you, Sam?
Yes, I have. So we'll stick a link either if we can do it magically and it'll appear on the YouTube when we post it up, or we'll make sure we put it in the description below. But yeah, I've been tracking the jobs and so I've just pieced them together into an Excel doc. So nothing as amazing as EMEA, but it is just XDev
Amazing and
developer
near.
roles. It's just XDev developer roles, but there's over 50 of them in there, right? So there's got to be a good indication that that life is returning.
I hope so. Even in just May, there were like 15 jobs that have come up like worldwide, which is pretty great. Like all the way from the States to China to the UK, Czech Republic, Canada, Vancouver. Leamington Spa, lovely Leamington Spa, all sorts of places. And it's like, there's some great companies in there as well. Blizzard, Scopely, Wargaming, Electronic Arts, Keyword, Secret Mode, like all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a good mix of different roles. It's fingers crossed. It's pretty positive news.
Yeah. So hopefully it hits it from both sides, right? That the industry itself is picking up a little bit, and that the XDev side of it as well is heading up that charge. So I hope so.
Because
I
there
hope
was
so.
quite a lot of concern, like from conversations following XDS. Well, through the XDS advisory committee, especially, like how knowledge is being lost in external
Mm,
development because of layoffs throughout the industry. And
yeah.
we've built up a lot of great ways of working with external partners and with developers over the past 10 years, and there was quite a lot of concern about, like, if that knowledge disappears, like our process is going to go back 10 years, and we're going to have to learn everything from scratch again, which obviously we don't want to do, because like we've got some great practices in place. But fingers crossed, like this is kind of showing that XDev is needed, and XDev is growing. So fingers crossed, this is a really good sign.
I really hope so. We've got because I feel for the some of the people who put in some awkward positions because of the amount of layoffs there's been some XDev managers who weren't particularly doing it beforehand who have found themselves in that position. At the
Mm.
same time, they're getting a lot of pressure on cost and flexibility and movement from higher up, as we've seen from the Insights report. The cost has shot up from 5 to 1 in the top 10 list of reasons to
Mm.
outsource. So the two together can be quite a difficult mix. So
Yeah.
it's great to see that they're building up the external development muscle a bit more and building up the team. So there are because one of the things we tend to forget about external dev, or we certainly can do, is that your ability to do external development is throttled by your internal team. Like
Mhm.
you've got to be able to manage it internally before you can expand it externally. And we quite often just go for it. We kind of just, hey, let's just add more and more and more and more. And you see these poor external dev managers shrinking under the weight of the amount of work they're having to do, the amount they're having to manage. And ironically, if you took that same body of people and put them into the studio, there's no way you would have one person or two people looking over
No,
that many hundreds of people, right? It just wouldn't happen.
no,
But
it's
outside
true.
the studio, it's kind of okay. And
Oh
for
God,
some
no.
reason, it gets overlooked. So, yeah, they're doing a heroic job at the moment, and I do hope, anecdotal as it is, that it's an indication that they're getting some support and some attention.
I think so too. But yeah, take a look at the link somewhere here or
Somewhere.
here
And I'll try and
somewhere.
update as often as I can, at least once a week. So keep checking back.
It's very cool. It's a great doc, Sam. Well done.
So, especially as they're all moving towards external development, well, as they're all moving towards co-development as well, which is a more complex thing to manage on top of that, right? You've got the co-development model that now means that on top of just having the sheer volume, it's integrated, it's whatever co-development is. And I don't know if that
You
term's
see,
really
this is something that maybe I would. Hmm. I'd like to have a little bit of a moan.
go for it.
You
Go
ready?
for it.
You ready?
Well, I
Spicy.
had I had a mild rant last week, so I think you're overdue.
Okay, get ready. Okay. Um, I think I'm getting a little bit frustrated with the term co-development. This
Yeah.
is a spicy take. Feel free to have a go at me in the comments. I can take it. Basically, like, I feel as though the word co-development is used a lot, but
Mhm.
to me, it's not overly descriptive. And to me, people use it for so many different things now. It can mean like having people integrated with your pipeline. It can mean um, using teams that bring in several different disciplines and all work like in one pipeline. It can mean we hire this external partner to complete a mode for us, or part of like a larger part of a pipeline. It's so broad, and it's not descriptive. I think personally, I love it. It's a very nice word. It feels very relationship driven, and it feels like we're creating something together, which is great. I love
Good.
that. It feels more suitable than the commonly worded outsourcing. It's just a nicer word to use if you are collaborating with people. But for me, if people come up and say, "Oh, we're a co-development company," that for me doesn't feel strong enough. Like for me, I think you need to be. I would love to see it, maybe some more descriptive terms being used for
So if
what
somebody says
people
to
are
you,
doing
hey,
with external development rather than just relying on the word co-development.
so they say, hey, we're a co-development company. What you ask, how? How are you a co-development company?
What do you do?
What do you
Like,
do? Well,
what do
what
you
is it that
do?
what
How
is
do
it
you
that
work with people? Like,
allows you to yeah, well, allows
yeah,
you to say the word co-development? What is it
yeah,
about what you do that says, yeah, we have earned the right to be able to say we're a co-dev company?
yes. And what does that include? Like, does that include integrated teams? Like, what disciplines does that include? Like, how do you work with the partner? Like, tell us about your production processes and how you create those strong bonds and how you make it work well as a co-development engagement. Like, I think there needs to be more color around the word
Mm,
and what different companies really do to make co-development happen, because every company's different. Like, co-development isn't a one word solution that everyone uses. Everyone approaches it differently, and everyone has different strengths and things that
mhm.
they do really well and things that they bring to the table and different uniquenesses. And I think people need to use those unique, that's a new word, uniquenesses. They need to use them more, um, to to stand out and to show what they really, really do. Like, to me, I think there needs to be a little bit more effort in descriptions and less leaning on the word co-development to try and explain what they do.
Well, I guess you feel like you kind of have to say it in a way because that's where everything's going, right?
Because that's
So
what
there's a
everyone says that everyone
yeah.
wants. And I guess they do, but every developer wants something different too.
So is this getting looped up with that kind of when you would talk to a supplier and they'd say, well, we can do everything, right? There's co-development, a new way of saying, hell, we can do everything, right? But and you would always ask the question, no, but what are you really good at? And when if they couldn't answer what are you really good at, what's your specialism, you could sometimes ask, what would you like to do? Like, what's your ideal project? And that might help tease out for them what their priorities were, where their strengths really lie.
Yeah.
But I guess your accusation on how you're framing the word co-development, right? Can that be as equally applied to the developer who says, "Hey, we work in co-dev with our suppliers"? Do you?
Yes.
Do you really?
I
And what
think
is it?
so. I think so. Like, I think most developers, when they say co-development, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm completely wrong. I think most developers, when they're talking about co-development, want people that they feel like they're sitting next to when they're
Mhm.
working. People that take ownership, I suppose, in a certain part of what they're doing, um, and are integrated. But is that the definition of codev? What is the definition of codev?
Well, what's the well, and where does that stop? Is that the entire team? Because we do this with scale, right? A lot of the time our development is about scale, is about what we can't get. So we can't have everybody involved. So
Yeah.
where's your shade of gray that tips you over? So you say, hey, you know what? We're actually a co-development. studio.
Yeah.
And I think,
Yeah.
to your point, this kind of description of what things actually are is just it's an industry-wide thing, right? The description of what a AAA game is.
Yeah.
No one's settled on that, right?
That's
Like
true.
you speak to some people and it's, hey, it's anything over 50 million is a AAA game. Is it? Is it though? And does that keep changing? And then others, it's about ambition. For me, AAA games were always about people who are pushing the envelope, people who are pushing the very edge of what a game can do, right? And what you can do inside the industry. But that's just me. That's not what a AAA definition is. So yeah,
Yeah.
maybe co-development isn't a description, maybe it's an aspiration.
Mm.
Maybe it's like we are capable, if we both work together, developer and supplier, of forming a co-development relationship, right? We are open
Mm.
to it, and wherever your description of that falls, we can get there. So that probably means that,
Yeah.
they're capable of adding the technical support, they're capable of adding the production support they need to do that, that you can work in engine with the way that they work. And from the developer side, you are actually okay with them having access to your version control. You're okay with them joining your stand-ups or having a
Mm.
representative join the stand-ups and that kind of thing. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
maybe there's some definition at the start and it's an aspiration for where you will get to, but you're both thinking about doing it. And that
It's a way of
allows you to,
life.
yeah, so that allows you to put the term co-development on your marketing materials and website and what else, rather than,
Yeah.
God, I need to put co-development on there because everybody's doing it.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's I think that feels a little bit better to me,
Yeah,
actually.
that
Like
was in there.
it's I like that. It's an aspirational term and something that you are into building with someone. Like getting to that point where you feel like, yes, we are co-developing together. That's kind of cute. I like it. Um,
Well, the things, because you don't get the opposite,
mm,
right? You
mm,
don't get. When was the last time a supplier came up to you and said, "Oh, we're a throw over the fence kind of supplier," right? So
Never.
we just want
No.
you to just give us the stuff and leave us the hell alone. We don't want to have access to stuff. We just give us a mandate and just leave us the hell alone. We're that supplier, right? So right now, if you want to stand out, position yourself like that, right?
Yeah.
Because nobody.
So is co-development a goal to have a perfect external development relationship?
Well, maybe the right external development
The
relationship for
right
companies is
external
fine.
development
Yeah,
relationship.
maybe.
Okay, that's interesting. I
Maybe. But
think
yeah, I would
maybe.
love to hear our listeners' thoughts on what they think a co-development relationship is and where it sits. When you get the right
Mm.
to be able to say, we're a co-developer. Who knows?
Yes, I'd love to hear from people, like either in the comments or LinkedIn or whatever else. Yeah, I get the feeling it'd be great to get some of other people's perspectives on this.
Legitimate
Kind of
concern,
lost
legitimate bugbear.
lately. Yeah. I suppose we ought to get to Leah's interview, hadn't
Yes.
we? We spoke to Leah Hoyer from Level-Headed Games recently, and she is wonderful as always.
Yeah.
She's got some great insights for you all, some great takes on external development. So we're so happy that she could join us for this. Hi, today's guest. We are joined here by Leah Hoyer. She is a creative leader with amazing credits across games such as Magic the Gathering, Destiny, Guild Wars 2. She's had senior roles at amazing companies like Xbox, Bungie, Telltale, Wizards of the Coast, and she's now the founder and the CEO of Level Headed Games. And she's also on our XDS advisory committee. So she's right at that intersection of how games are actually getting made today. And we're so happy to have you on here. So welcome, Leah.
Thank you
Welcome, Lee.
so much. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. We're so happy you could join us. And today, what we're going to do is we're going to dig into some of the things that are changing and how studios are making decisions right now, what actually makes partnerships succeed or fail, and what it really looks like to build in today's environment. So,
Yeah.
you've had such a broad view of the industry from like leading creatively inside big studios and now managing and building your own. And you've seen how games come together from so many different angles. So how has it been for you, and how are things going for you at Level Headed?
Overall, they're going well. I am really excited about what we're building, and I do quite enjoy entrepreneurship. Like I do think that I'm wired for it fairly well. That being said, nothing about it is easy. So, you know, like when things get done, we're a small team, and that team is not just people who are, full-time level-headed employees living in the same area. We're still a small team, but we're globally distributed. And in general, if I'm not on top of knowing that we're going to need to do something 2 weeks from now, it just doesn't get done, as opposed to when you're in a larger organization and there's a lot more checks and balances for you. So it's going well, but there are a lot of times when I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, oh goodness, I haven't done that thing. Yeah, and someone needs to do that thing. And that I don't get as much sleep as I used to. But other than that,
Man.
things are going okay.
But is
I
there more
find that little.
opportunity for naps?
You know, in some ways, yes. It's a really interesting. I had never pondered it, but the cool thing about having sort of a globally distributed team is that we have a fairly thin band of hours that we do all of our meetings in, because you're dealing with different time zones, and some of the folks get up in the morning and they'll do their sort of heads down IC work. And then in the afternoon, by their time, we might be doing our meetings. Whereas for us, we tend to wake up, do our meetings in the morning, and then in the afternoon, have a lot more flexibility. So I would be lying if I said that I never took a 3 o'clock in the afternoon nap. But that's the flexibility of what we have, because then there's sometimes when I'm up until 3 a.m. working on something. And at some point, something's got to give. And from a schedule flexibility standpoint, in some ways it's more rigid, but in others, it's interesting that you bring that up, because yeah, in other ways, there are more opportunities to have a more flexible schedule.
I like the idea of flexibility being a byword for nap. Oh, so a nap's never a waste of time anyway. Like I find, it's a different kind of focus time, right? That's the way to look at it. I find that little bit, the shift for me from going from big org to having your own business is that little bit before you wake up, and if you pluck on an idea in that little state, I find myself trying to stay in that state and explore it, because for some reason my mind works pretty well at that little bit when I'm trying to solve a problem, or if I've got an idea and I'm going, where does that kind of go? That little bit is good.
Absolutely. And I have learned long ago that if some sort of inspiration strikes you at 2:30 in the morning, which sadly happens more often than I'd like to admit, if I don't get up and at least write it down or grab my laptop and just spit out the basics of the idea, I'm never going to get to sleep. And because I'll stress about forgetting the thing or wanting to remember it. And that is the time where it's sort of the crispest generally in your mind. Occasionally you wake up and you look at it again at 9 a.m. and you're like, what was I thinking? That's a horrible idea. But for the most part, it actually tends to beget some good things. And so, yeah, your schedule is a lot less, it's significantly less routine working in, your own studio. At the same time, that can sometimes be nice. So you do have the flexibility in the afternoon to, get in some exercise, take your dog for a walk, that kind of thing.
Yes, that's so important. And has that been like the biggest shift for you from moving from large orgs to running your own company? Or is there something else that's hidden there that's been a bit more of a
No, I
surprise?
definitely think the biggest shift is just the fact that, you know, I am so used to previously having decent sized departments to deal with the general, you know, running of the business elements, whether it be operations, HR, marketing, you know, all of that. And I loved that. I really do love, I love teamwork, and I love being able to rely on other people to do the things that they are good at. And I think there's still a lot that I do, but much more of that now is product focused. And when it comes to the non product focused elements, not to say that I'm doing it all myself, because I certainly will find sometimes other people to help at those times when we really need it. But it's on me to make sure that it's happening. And many times you do have to put on a lot more hats in a, you know, a smaller startup type studio. And so um you at least put on the hat of trying to find the right partner to solve the right problem at the right time, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. And in that transition from large to your own company there, did it change how you think about working with people around the world or external partners or outsourcing partners?
yes, in some ways. I mean, I've always been a big fan of external development. I think it's such a it's an awesome flex in being able to get anything done, particularly on, you know, creative software type projects. Um, but the smaller the team, it becomes even more important to have really significant interpersonal connections. And it's not to say we all have to be like best friends, but you have to be able to meld with the people, and the working relationships become so important when there aren't 18 people in your engineering department. There's more likely to be two. And so when that's happening, if your two engineers are on different continents, you have to at least make sure that there is a fertile ground for them to be able to collaborate with one another. And um, I think flaws in the system show up in different ways when it's just a small team, because you don't have the kind of backup and the checks and balances. And so it's I'm not going to say it's harder or easier. It's a different type of hard. It's a different type of challenge. And it becomes a more personal challenge, I think. Anytime that you're working with a smaller team and everyone really does know each other, that becomes a really different thing than maybe working on a team that's 40 or 50 locally with 40 or 50 other people external. There are a lot of folks who will never actually meet one another. And to be honest, probably don't have a need to in some ways. Whereas when you're a team of 10, um, everyone's going to know each other. Everyone's going to know each other's pets' names. Everyone's going to, you know, understand what's your favorite color, the kind of sports that you like to watch. You know, there's just that you get to engage in that kind of small talk, which is awesome. But then there's also the potential for, okay, but then in some ways, everyone needs to be able to get along and be able to work well together, because you don't, an interpersonal conflict or a conflict in working styles, you don't have a way to really mask that in any way.
You can find a workaround when it's a big company. Like if
Yeah.
if your relationship in that particular area doesn't work with somebody, you can find, but I can get along with that person, and they can get along with them, and there's a kind of, you can work out a pathway to get around it. But it's a lot more,
Wholeheartedly. Yeah.
yeah, where you are right now. But I mean, but also like you're working on external development within a small team, so I think your multiple hat wearing is also happening with the people you work with. They're a small studio.
100%. Yeah. And I think just like not everyone is necessarily I would not recommend to everyone that they start their own studio. You know, I hear so much from people these days that, hey, we've had so many layoffs and there's been so much of a downturn, maybe this is the time for me to do my own thing. And if it, you know, I'm not going to say, oh, don't do that, don't follow your dreams, but you it just takes a certain type of mentality. But the truth is, even working within that sort of startup environment, not everyone is the right person to work in it, whether it be, you know, kind of within the mothership or external development, because a lot of external development studios are made to plug in to much larger organizations. And, you know, so it really does, it's a type of work and workflow that I find really exciting, but it doesn't suit everyone's personality because there is a lot more it sort of the flip side of the flexibility is there's a lot more uncertainty about what you might be working on 2 weeks from now. And there, you know, huge opportunities for growth because you can step up and you can try something new because we need you to step up and try something new. But then we also need you to step up and try something new. And not everyone is in the right place for that. And it again, that extends to the people that we work with globally.
If you could Borg together the perfect person for running a new indie studio, like what are the qualities that you think would be the best Borg creation of someone running that company?
Definitely comfort in discomfort. Like, you know, there are no certainties. An ability to smartly pivot is really important. I would say absolutely a huge amount of tenacity. If you're getting into it thinking, oh, well, game studios, look at these success stories of studios that have, you know, put their first game out and they've made $50 million. That is so the exception to the rule. And getting there takes a lot of hard work, whether it be fundraising, bootstrapping, pulling together the right people. And it's tiring. It can be really exhausting. And so, in some ways, there needs to be that real hunger. In a weird way, I think I've seen the best in myself in a strange way when I've had less of a safety net, you know, because at the end of the day, while there's the security and maybe a bit more mental calm when you know, okay, I have enough money in the bank, or you might have maybe a family that's able to support your partner, or someone is able to support what you're doing. In some ways, the hunger around it is what really gets you to do the extraordinary things that I think are necessary to get any new endeavor, not just off the ground, but continuing and succeeding and moving forward.
How's it affected how you take risks? Like you take the difference between taking a risk in a big org and a small org, right? Do you like are you better at deciding what risk to take now than you were at Xbox, or are you worse?
Hands down. And it's also, of course, you've got different parameters. I think you have to take risks when you're doing any kind of startup and in a small org, because the big thing is like, sorry if I'm offending anyone, but I don't really think that a small startup should come out trying to make a, you know, revolutionary first person shooter or an MMO or various other things, in part because there are giant organizations that have already mastered how to do that and they're doing it exceptionally well, and you're very unlikely to have a team that's able to compete with that. So at the very nature, one of the things that you have to do is stand out. Like you have to be differentiated from the kinds of games that are out there. That introduces a ton more risk though, because you can't just go on to Steam, look at the, 8 major categories of game and have yours fit nicely into it. It's harder to talk about. You're going to have to figure new things out about what really makes this fun when you're kind of mashing up different things. That being said, if you don't do it, it's so incredibly difficult to stand out in games at this point. So I think you're going to have to take a risk in the type of games you're making. You're probably going to have to take a risk on some of the people that you're hiring in a way that you don't in a larger organization where you've got the ability to maybe pay higher salaries, give better benefits packages, deep 401k matching, things that bluntly I'm not able to offer at the moment, right? So you do have to take more risks with people. But that being said, I think it's also the case that you then need to balance the risks and what are all the things that that this industry has figured out before and really evaluate. We can't reinvent every wheel. You can't even in a big organization, though sometimes they'll try. And a small organization is an absolute impossibility. And so it is balancing I'm going to bite the very nature of what we do, take on more risk. So I also need to be really okay with the fact that our, achievements system feels very much like a lot of other games' achievement systems, and that is okay. Or, the route that we take to do something, we're maybe less inclined to invest in a new, the latest and greatest new system that came out to run your sprints by, because if we know we've worked with Jira before, okay, why don't we just dive in and work with that, as opposed to sort of the promise of what these other things can be. Larger organizations probably have the ability to accept the fact that they might get in and realize it hasn't worked for them. So sometimes you just have to be like, that is not a decision we're going to deal with. We are just going to go with what we know and move forward, because therefore I think I've become a much better person at deciding what is worth taking a risk on. It's still a risk. Yeah.
I think you're bang on about the reinventing the wheel, like working out when you don't have to do it. I think as an industry, we suck at that anyway. Like regardless of being even in the big organizations or not, we reinvent the wheel almost constantly.
Far too often. Yeah.
And it slows us down, but you don't get the luxury. I think that's quite nice, right? I think that helps move things forward, because you haven't got the luxury to reinvent the wheel. So you just go, okay, this is one we're not going to have to do. We're not going to do.
Yeah.
Somebody else has been down this route. Somebody else knows what they're doing. I mean, I remember in the early days at Sumo, we had 3 game engines on the go at the same time. And it was like, the only thing I think was stopping us from having one game engine was ego, if I'm being perfectly honest. Right? It's just, but we will do this. We will kind of like, we'll live with the stuff that we've redone over and over again. I think partly because we know the route. Like we know that, okay, we're reinventing it, but we know it works when we reinvent it. And we know we can get through, we can brute force our way through. But yeah, so I think companies like yourself probably are moving things forward quite a bit faster and able to make those decisions quite a bit faster.
It is one of the only like real legs up that a smaller organization has, is their agility and their speed. Like they can pivot faster, they can move things forward. There's not layers of people who have to approve things. And so the flip side of that is, though, you can't get overly bogged down with, hyper perfection. We've got certain working agreements that we have in our organization. And a core one that I've always tried to instill, regardless of where I've worked, but it's so important now, is, perfect is the enemy of great. I've never really liked perfect as the enemy of good, because I don't know that good is necessarily the standard that we're looking for. But, when is something great enough? and just being like, that's not the way that I would do it, but this person sees it in their head and it absolutely works. So I'm going to let that person just roll with it, take on that feature, put it in the game, because to be honest, I don't know that my version's any better, but also, even if it is this much better, is it worth then the time it takes to get everyone on board to move it forward? Or at some point you can noodle with something so much that, if you're sitting there talking about, oh, the pixels took a little bit too long to die off in this VFX, at some point that's just it's a time sink that we don't have the ability for.
Oh yeah, 100%. When you're talking about this agility that you have when it comes to having your own and smaller company, how does that change the process for selecting new external partners or choosing them or going through onboarding? Like, how has it changed the process compared to when you were at some of these enormous companies?
I would say it's A, faster, and B, it's a heck of a lot more relationship based.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it comes back to the many people can look good on paper, can send you the PowerPoint deck and the reel that is really lovely. But I don't have the luxury of being able to try you out for 3 to 6 months, have it not quite work out, and move on.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it will come much more down to who is it that I've gotten to know on a face-to-face basis, maybe at a conference like XDS or other ones. How is it more of a, hey, I can just tell because I'm talking with the head of this organization or a person who I'd be working with very closely, and we're spiritually aligned on the same types of games that we like to make, the same ways that we're going to be working together, and we know that therefore the odds are much higher that our teams are really going to mesh in the way that we need them to. So yeah, it is obviously still about cost. It probably, in some ways, is more about cost when you've got your finite budget of a small company. But I think what you find is there are a lot of very cost effective companies out there that can help you do what you're doing. And so the thing that really moves the needle is, yeah, and how well do you know them? How well do you know them, not just by their sales pitch, but by actual interactions, 1 degree of separation recommendations, those kinds of things that just give you the confidence that you're gonna work together as one unit. Because when you're a team of 10-ish, you don't have, even if you're a team of 20-25 people, um, you don't really have the ability for this entire group of maybe 7 or 8 people who are working at a different studio in a different country maybe to feel really separated from you. They have to come together and they have to mesh. So yeah.
I like what you were saying about like how there are a lot of companies out there who are quite cost effective. Like, I think it's really important to go in and understand how an external partner works before just going ahead and taking that blanket rate they will give you at face value, because there's so much more to it than that. It's about like going in and figuring out how they work, how their team is structured, like who you're going to be working with, who they're going to be bringing onto the team, and why that rate's like that. What does that include? Like, where is this money placed and what does it contribute to? What efficiencies could there be made to make things come within your budget? And like, having those conversations to try and figure out why rates are like that and how you can use that rate most to your advantage by partnering in the right way. I think that conversation like needs to happen every single time. And yeah.
Absolutely. And it certainly happens when I was at larger companies.
Mhm.
We would work with external studios and have a significantly higher budget, but we'd always go through the budget and be like, wait, why do we need 3 people on this task? Feels like kind of a one-person task. Or we already have this sort of production side internally. So, yes, we're obviously going to need the point person that we're working with on the other team. But do we need to mirror our entire production staff over here and over there? That sometimes is in the first pitch that a company will give to you, like when you're in the larger a larger studio. And I think sometimes I will say, in most cases, there's always good reason for it. It's still not the case that you can take on extra headcount, even if you're at the larger studios, that you don't need. And so it is worth thinking about, hey, if you're thinking about this holistically, as ultimately we want to be one giant team, what are the capabilities we have on our team? What are the capabilities that you're augmenting? And how do we ensure that we've got enough of the communication pipelines and pathways that are going back and forth? And I think in some ways you can get better communication with a slightly pared down version of that. And bluntly, I mean, I think a lot of times what we're dealing with now in our industry is folks who maybe didn't do enough of that, both internally and externally, because they 5 years ago had some sort of carte blanche, sure, we can hire 3 more people because our next game's going to come out. We're making money hand over fist. Our next game's going to come out and it's going to do equally well. And we're, there was maybe a little too little of that in the past. And now it's leading to some of the necessary backlash now that we're, out of COVID, not gaming in quite the same ways. All the salaries were increased so much during that time. Like there are so many factors to it, but over hiring is never good, regardless of which side you're looking at. If it's an internal person or an external person, it's probably best to take the cautious approach and then grow as the needs are there. Then over hiring, expecting that the work is going to be there and that the funds are going to be there. And then we wind up in a situation like we're seeing in our industry now.
It's such a fine balance.
It's,
But I mean,
I'm not saying it's easy. And I don't think, having 2 or 3 extra people on your team is the thing that is making or breaking what's happening, in our industry now. It is more of the, hey, we're going to spin up 10 different incubation projects that we're all going to start to, staff very largely and robustly very quickly before we've proven out the fun and before we've done various other things. So, there's a whole, we could have an entire different podcast thing about like, why are we in the state that we're in now? But certainly your budget, regardless of if you're a large studio or a small studio, is something you just have to respect and you have to understand and you have to know that you can put together a budget, but nothing's going to go perfectly. So you need to have the padding and the flexibility in it. And from the flip side, if you're a studio looking to do that work for on some of these games and for other studios, I think it's so important that sure, like you can absolutely put the best case scenario pitch together, but you're gonna have the back and forth with people, and to know that sometimes your competition isn't putting all that padding in to their first bid, and that matters a lot, right? So
And it's there's a fine balance between what the studio needs in terms of a bench to be able to deal with spikes and resource drops, but also
Yep.
just how that communication works. Because to your point, it's just not a smooth ride, right? It's never going to be. It's messy and weird. It's broken and it's all over the place. But you need that point of contact. And I remember one of the studios at Xbox. Well, 'cause I do sometimes wonder, as a smaller studios, one of the things you do have as a bigger studio is the luxury of the long tests, right? So you can go through quite a long trial period with
Yes.
those studios, and if it doesn't work out as a partner, you can back away. But you don't really have that luxury to do multiple tests with multiple studios in the same way as if you're a small operation. But I remember one of the studios came back going through an art test, and they chose the second best quality result, or maybe even the third best quality result that came back from the art tests. And I remember saying, but this is like clearly better. And she said, yeah, yep, it is. But I liked working with them, the other team. I could communicate with them much better, and they'll get us through the hard times, and I can get their quality to that. I can get them there. That's okay. But I can talk to them and I trust them. So we're going with them.
Wholeheartedly. Yeah. Uh, and the trust side is huge regardless of the size of studio, and I think the other thing that's kind of related to what we're talking about is not just can, yes, by the very nature of working with them, you can level up that studio to meet your bar, because that's part of what you offer to external studios as well, is greater training, more experience for their people. But also, I think most external studio, like most outsourcing studios, I'm not a huge fan of that word, but most outsourcing studios, one of the big things that they really do offer is that flexibility. And I feel like sometimes that doesn't exist in the pitch as much as it should, because that in many ways is what we were just talking about. If I know that next month, if I need 2 more artists, that this company can provide that to me in fairly short stead and be responsible for the quality bar that's there, that is so much easier than me hiring 2 full-time artists on into a team. And it's like the hiring them, and then B, really figuring out, well, how long do I need to hire them for? Is this actually a permanent position? And the answer is probably not in our current state, and especially at our company at the moment. So the ability to find the folks who want to take maybe a 2 to 3 month stint, as opposed to, that is in many ways what some outsourcing studios are really set up to do. And if they can provide that flexibility, that also makes them incredibly helpful and incredibly valuable, and
So is it
allows
rare
us
that
to not lay people off,
so it's
Yeah.
rare that you'll see that kind of information about how they handle flexibility and scaling and ramp up, like when it comes to what they're pitching to you?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, well, I would say maybe not rare,
Mm.
but I don't understand why anyone in the industry doesn't have that as a significant part of their pitch. As, hey, this is what we recommend as the team, the core team, and then here are ways that we can augment that over time. The a la carte menu of it is one of the top 5 reasons, absolutely, to be involved with external development, is the flexibility that it offers to your team to kind of grow and shrink. And it's not it's not a magic wand, because you can't expect that now some new person gets dropped on and they're instantly already onboarded. They understand your art style, they understand your code base, they understand all this. It's I'm not delusional in thinking that then that person just slots in and is immediately at 100%. That's not the way it works. But it does take off so many of the pain points of needing to have a team size that can kind of flex with your production pathway and work within your budget and your timeline.
Oh yeah.
And so the
100%.
fact that it isn't like a top 3 bullet in every pitch deck that I've ever seen actually surprises me. The more that if like someone were to put in, hey, we recommend this as the base team, and here are ways, and here would be the rates. If we were to add this on, we promise we would get this to you within 4 weeks, within 2 weeks, within 6 weeks, whatever the position might demand. Knowing that, oh my goodness, like that is an EP's dream, right? So the people who are sitting there with the purse strings deciding where to go, if you can really offer that kind of flexibility and be transparent about it, that transparency speaks so highly of what Sam was just talking about. How great are they to work with?
That transparency on how you bring people in could, because it's such a pain point, right? When you bring somebody
Yeah,
new in, and we have this bad habit of just going, right, well, we've got double the work, so we'll double the people, but that's not kind of how it works, right? It's you've got to bring somebody in, they've got to come up, you don't know their skill
yeah,
level. It's not like, I think perhaps some honesty about how the studio is going to deal with that, to say, okay, we will bring people in. We're actually pulling from a slightly more junior team, so if we ramp,
yeah,
this is the impact it'll have, right? We could
Mm.
maybe ramp a bit quicker from a more senior team and such, but it will have a cost implication if we do that. But it will still, just having that plan in all honesty, because the funny thing is you're not hiring the individual people, you're
yeah.
hiring the company, right? So what you're meshing with is that company's ID, like is that personality of that studio, and you trust them to bring in people who will fit in that personality that you've bonded with, that fits what you're wanting to do. You trust them to bring those extra resources in, to also be a part of that personality, to also be a part of that culture that works so well with yours. And yeah, having that kind of in-depth transparency, I don't think I've ever seen it to that extent. I don't think I've ever seen someone go, yeah, and it's going to mean that this is going to be a bit longer while we bring them on board or whatever. But yeah, it would be super.
I will say I've gotten a little bit spoiled in the smaller studio side of things, is because then that transparency really has been there, because like we've worked with a company down in Argentina, Scuba Light, and I've loved working with them. They're great. But they are smaller. The cost is great for us, but we definitely know that there is oftentimes more onboarding, or
Yeah.
we're getting someone with a bit less experience coming into something. But oftentimes I have had the ability to actually talk with the person on the team before they've been brought on to the team. We've done a bit of like an interview for culture fit and stuff,
Yeah,
because we're smaller.
so small.
When I was at
Mhm.
Xbox or,
Not a chance.
Bungie, no, not even a chance. And truth is, I
No.
probably didn't have the time to do it there, because here it matters so much, because I am going to be in 4 meetings a week at least with every single one of these people, because that's the type of team we are, right? So it matters more. But you're right, in the bigger side of things, you're generally turning that over, so you need to trust them at a very base level.
Mm.
Absolutely. Do you think there's a right moment to be bringing in external partners, like especially when working with something as sensitive as like early creative or new IP?
I personally have found, like, if you're working on something new, especially within a larger organization, or something that you have an early idea, but you don't have your sort of green light monies yet. You're kind of coming up to some version of a go no go at different
Mm.
bench milestones along the way. I find that having your external development plan as part of going into that milestone really matters.
Yeah.
So that I absolutely, when we were at Wizards working on something in incubation, part of what allowed us to get the green light to move forward on our project was the fact that we had already had discussions with multiple studios, and had kind of gotten to the, hey, if this moves forward, we know we're going to be working with In that case, it was Pipeworks. And that was great because it gave so much more certainty and clarity to our pitch. So even though they hadn't really done, they'd maybe done a little bit of work to kind of show us the sort of things that they would be doing, but just sort of that initial kind of amount of work that you'd expect for most pitches, most of that kind of biz dev kind of, hey, here's an example of what we would do. We think that we could be really useful in these areas. They hadn't done almost any actual physical, tangible work that they could show to us or that we could show and put into a deck. But having their name there, having really reliable amounts of monies it was going to cost to get us to the next benchmark. All of that, I don't think that our industry is in a place anymore where you are going to get the approval and the funding, whether you're trying to go out and do it independently or whether you're within a big organization, unless you have a really solid, well thought out plan with some really reliable information. And that can only come if you've already been talking to your partners. Like there's, so to me, it's early. You talk early and you make them a part. It's also great because, like, when we were talking with Pipeworks, that team was so excited about what we were making because they also knew they were coming in so early. They were bought into the vision really early. They were part of that. And that was so also helpful when we then moved into pre-production and they actually came on board and we were working as a team. They felt like they weren't behind on things. They were already in the mix and that really helped.
We get to see the evolution as well, don't we? Get to see why the decisions being
Absolutely.
made. And for the first time, I've started seeing external partners mentioned in pitch decks.
Yep.
Where they've gone, we are going to be working with so and so for the UI, UX. We're going to be working on so and so, which is going to be interesting for the external dev suppliers out there about, the choice you're pitching, you're putting your hat in the ring could end up being extremely early. But if you're actually at that stage, that's really going to move a lot on early discovery and early relationships.
Yeah.
Cool.
And probably has on the downside for the external developers, when you're pitching on something that you don't know is already happening, you are potentially doing a lot more sunk cost in that biz dev side of things, right? It's very different. Like when I was at Bungie, I was working I worked on the other projects that were there, things like Destiny, Early Marathon, to some extent, but a lot of my time there was spent on sort of GMing an incubation studio. And that project eventually, for, some pretty good reasons, but also, you can always be like, oh, I wish that one had stuck around. That project went away. But like it is so much easier, I think, for a studio to pitch, an external studio to pitch working on Destiny than it is to pitch working on unannounced, still has green light gates to go through project. A, because of the familiarity with it, but B, because that thing, Destiny is not going away next month.
No.
This thing could very well go away next month, but we have to put in basically the same amount of effort to pitch on something like that. So I do recognize that from an external studio standpoint, the biz dev side of things is probably getting significantly harder, even though a lot of studios now need it because they have, brought down the sides, particularly in North America, they brought down the size of their internal team. So they need to rely on external development more. There's still a lot of competition out there and they're going to be asked to do things at an earlier and earlier stage. And that's tougher. It's in terms of odds of success, you're gonna have to take more shots on goals,
That's
Yeah.
true.
When you think about where the industry is going over the next few years, let's say let's go wild, 5 to 10 years, right? What do you think that modern game team will look like then? And where do you think external development fits into that?
I definitely think that studios and game teams will be smaller, like significantly smaller. There are certainly, I'm not to say you can't come out with the next AAA game. That is so much harder. It is so much riskier. And right now, at least, the industry isn't in necessarily this big risk space. You're certainly going to be making more of like amazing game version 7, amazing game version 8, like things that have the built-in fan base. But even those teams are going to get smaller, you know, whether it be because of, you know, AI tooling, which I know everyone's talking about so much, but more because I think they're going to get into we need, based on the market, the amount of competitors that are out there, the incredible difficulty to be able to put out a game that's going to bring in enough to cover the 100 million plus dev costs that so many of those huge games are doing right now. If I had $100 million to spend on a studio's game fund, I would much rather make $10 million games than one $100 million game right now. To be honest, like, but for the logistical nightmare of it, I might actually rather make $52 million games. You know, like there's just at some point that math doesn't math anymore,
Yeah,
but
that's
you get
gonna
my
get tricky.
point. Is like you I feel like the fewer, bigger, better days are gone, at least for now. The fact that you can have so many indie devs, so many, you know, teams of 2 people in a basement making a pretty darn fun game, like that player experience and the next generation of gamers is not nearly as obsessed with, you know, how photorealistic is the, you know, headshot that I'm taking on this person. Like that's just, you know, that tends to be the things that the people making the decisions about what games you're going to make are obsessed with, not what the new generation of gamers are obsessed with. And so,
Yeah, I read this thing,
being
like I
able to
can't remember.
focus on the like core creative and something smaller, I think is so key. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. I read something like, oh, it was ages ago now. It was like a year ago, but it was talking about like who really cares about high fidelity games, ones that are like super photorealistic. And I think it was actually quite a small subsection of the industry of players. It was people between, I think I'm probably slightly wrong, but it was between like 30 and 40 years old, like people in that um um subsection of players were like the most interested in seeing like high fidelity games. That's only a small section of players. You're getting more people that are playing games that are over 40 years old. You're getting a ton of players that are much younger than that are obsessed, but they want things that are more like connected with people and social and things like that. They don't really mind so much about like how the graphics are, for example. So yeah, it's
They
actually
get
a
super
quite.
excited about Among Us. They don't need, you
Oh yeah.
know, like
Yeah,
yeah,
they get super
yeah.
excited about Roblox, and Roblox looks awful.
It looks, yeah, sorry, Roblox, not the height of, you
No,
know,
no.
cinematic beauty that, yeah, everyone thinks that, well, that a lot of the powers that be have been betting on for a long time.
And
And yeah, the social side of things, I think you're totally right. The ability to just get in and have that fun experience that either you can play with others, or certainly single player games are by no means dead, that you at least want to tell and talk about other people with, and the fact that you are playing this, you know, solo game. Maybe there's a small amount of social with it, but even if not, that you're telling them about the playthrough that you had last night, the cool thing that happened in the story, this really funny thing that happened, you're showing off your character's outfit that you've been able to earn and customize, like all that sort of stuff. But the outfit is more likely to be shown off if it's like a goofy banana hat than if it's like photorealistic ancient Roman garb, like it's like, okay, we've seen that before. We see that in movies, Yeah.
Or at least it's got to be streamable, something that people just
Yep.
have to sit and watch because it's so amazing to watch. Whether it's like a really cool mechanic that not many other people have thought of, but it's just so it's just amazing that no one's thought about it before, because it's amazing. Or something like that's super funny to watch, or actually like terrifying. There's a bunch of great horror games out there right now that are really fun to watch. Like there's so many
Not my
exciting
genre, but
games.
absolutely. There are a ton of people who want it, right? So I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I don't need that. I
Oh,
already don't get enough
Absolutely.
sleep. We've talked about that before. But you're right. And that's the other thing, is that the world is finally, thankfully, waking up to the fact that everyone plays games.
Mhm.
And therefore, you don't need these giant behemoth games that are trying to be like hundreds of millions of players, like um I sort of harken out, like I used to work in TV, and the TV industry is going through it right now, right? But if we remember, we're all um old enough to remember that, like, hey, when I was growing up, there weren't like a lot of channels, and my parents wouldn't pay for cable. Like, I was like, okay. So I was stuck with like 7 channels at home, maybe. And one of them was PBS, and one of them went off air at 9 p.m. Like, just awful things, right? But there was this little group. And so you had to watch the thing that was on TV. Cable certainly expanded that. And then the amount of digital television that, like, cable used to be like 30 or 40 channels, and then it became 500 channels in multiple languages and various other things. And then YouTube happened, right? And now there is a lot of short form, interesting, like it's not the same type of thing as a really great TV procedural or what have you, that, obviously has the budget. And I think there's still very much a space for that. But what something like cable first did, and then YouTube really blew out, is every single person had content that felt like it was made exactly for them. I worked at Disney Channel, and Disney Channel, at the core of it, was I was making animated shows. Bluntly, I knew I was making animated show for a 7-year-old girl in Iowa. Like it
Yeah.
was like, how do we, and that, I thought that was amazing. Like, that's so cool,
Yeah.
because before, I always loved animation. I always loved cartoons growing up, but most of them didn't feel like they were made for me. Like, if I was watching animation, either it was something maybe a little too preschool and a little too young, it was something a little too violent and a little too, like I don't know, war based or whatever, that I wasn't as excited about. And there were maybe 20% of them that really hit my like sweet spot. Okay, now there are entire networks made to hit your particular sweet spot. And then once it comes down to YouTube, now it's like, hey, this is me and my friends group, like, here. And it still can have mass appeal, but they're able to take more risks because they are breaking out of the need to go through long dev cycles and to make super costly content, so they can put out a lot of stuff, see what sticks, and they find these more niche audiences, plenty to keep them going. Games is doing that now. Games is in its YouTube era. And we are in a place where, so therefore, you want to turn your thing around pretty quickly, find its niche audience that should be plenty big if what you're working on is a $2 million budget or less. Hey, if you can do that, you don't need a ton of people to like go out and buy and love your game.
Oh.
And so I feel like, unfortunately, what we're seeing in the industry is that the decision making and the large powers that be aren't took a little too long to wake up to what the fans were saying, and what, like, when you see how much Roblox is popping off, I think it's less about the fact that Roblox games are like the be all end all and amazing. It is somebody spent 2 weeks putting together this fun little experience that works for me, and I can go there, I can consume it, I can play it for a while, and then I can bounce over to the next thing that feels like it's in that same space, because there's always this content that I can go to. And so it's, yeah, I just feel like it's taken a bit too long for the industry to kind of see what I think the audience was trying to tell them for quite a while.
Maybe maybe we do. Maybe there is a guide in TV and the rest that of where games are going to go. And just to your point about being more hyper focused, more fractious, more targeted. And when you think about to your point about the TV, when it was 6 or 7 channels, right? Nearly all TV was event TV because people would
Yes.
have to gather around into the same room and all be okay with watching that program, right? So you were always appealing to a group that would come together and socialize physically on that
Yep.
one program that would come in, and there would be very little choice about it, about what that is. And now we kind of get this event gaming where it's more about those moments, but it's spread over time. It's not the
Mhm.
same thing. So you're coming together for these little hits of moments that you weren't getting before. And I think perhaps we're still geared for the in your front room event gaming that we're perhaps moving past. And there's a big part of me that wants to resist us moving past it, and I can't help myself. I can't help it. What are you doing, you
Like I
youngin?
said, I don't think that it's not going away. It's just you have a lot more options. So Sam, your game will still be there.
It
The
better
big
be
event
because I
thing that you
really
want
like,
will
you
still
know.
be there. We're going to be making Call of Duty 47, whatever. Like this will, like, there are certain things that I think are entrenched enough that they will
Yeah.
probably be there. But the next generation of gamers is thinking about it, I think, very differently.
One of the things that struck me was like a friend of mine, their niece, like they came in, they laughed at the young niece, probably in early 20s, and was laughing at the size of their TV. And my friend does not have a very big TV, certainly not compared to my big TV, right? But she was laughing at the size of the TV because her and her friends don't watch TV on that size. It just seems a bit odd and retro. They watch on their laptop.
Mhm.
And there's a part of me that's screaming inside, like, you're watching Interstellar on your laptop. You monster! You absolute monster! What are you doing? This is this criminal. I don't know what to say. I'll put it on our laps on the bed and watch it together. I'm like, but
Oh.
there's something about that kind of just that the way they see how the experience is actually shared, or the way they see how the experience is delivered to them, that they're just not as fussed about as I
Yeah.
am. And I'm, yeah, it's my problem though. I'll deal with it. I'll let go eventually.
Right, Leah, how much time do you have? Do you have some more time?
Because I'm sure you're going to have to like edit this part out, but let me just send a quick chat to my team that
Talking about TVs, my husband bought the biggest TV I ever saw, and it's literally,
He's fighting against the dying of the light, is he?
it is just, I can't, I don't even know how big it is. It's like the size of the wall.
That's probably how he figured out which size TV to get.
right? Yes, there is a real difference. Okay, I have bought myself a little more time, so I have another 20 minutes or so.
Okay,
Um,
great.
I agree with you that there is something about in the past your TV was largely like, how much space do I have for my TV? As opposed to now it's like, well, what do I need to, what do I need to watch on my TV? And yeah, you're right. I think there is a whole generation of people who aren't, I haven't actually looked at, TV company like purchase numbers, but
Yeah.
I suspect that they are going down over time. So,
Mm,
Right.
very fascinating. We
I
normally
just
wrap
made
up.
Sam so sad in this whole thing. He's just like,
Oh, Sam.
That's a me problem.
Oh dear. We normally wrap up on quick fire questions, like quick, sharp answers, and we ask the same questions to every guest. Are you ready?
yes.
Okay. Right. Question 1. What do you suck at?
What's your
Oh,
kryptonite?
What's your kryptonite?
saying no.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
bad at it. I really have to work at that. And yeah.
Okay. And what's a small decision that had a huge impact on your career or on a project?
Maybe this is related. I'd say saying yes, like taking on some new opportunities, and in particular, taking that call and deciding to move up to Seattle to work at Xbox after having worked in TV for so long. Um, I've never looked back, never regretted it, but taking the being the gutsy, like, let's pivot. Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What's the fastest you've ever trusted someone and why?
Uh, I would say I was in a meeting one time and I said, uh, oh, it wasn't even that I said something. Someone was aware of a work I'd done on a project, and there was an executive in this meeting, this is a long time ago, who had said, oh, well, I'm not sure. And sort of like the finger was basically being pointed at me for something that I had nothing to do. And this person that I barely knew, but who always read the updates and was there, was like, oh, I know Leah was at that thing. It came out in this stuff. I didn't even know this person. And they were like, also not particularly high on the food chain, and just went up to a person of authority and just said, hey, I think this is kind of an unfair thing. Do this. And at that point, I was like, this person will always have your back and always do what's right. Like they're the lawful good person in the room who,
I
you know,
love that. We need those
Mhm.
people. That's
Yep.
great. Love it. What's one tool, workflow, or habit you swear by?
Aligning on why you are doing something. Too many teams do things because maybe they think they should, or it seems like it's the next step, or the opportunity is there to do it. And you're like, yeah, but why? What do we hope to get out of this?
Nice
Don't do
one.
work unless you know why you're doing it.
Exactly. What's the best accidental connection you've ever made at an event?
Um, One time in the bathroom line, there was, which is funny because in the video games industry, this is going to sound silly. Women celebrate when there's a line at the bathroom.
Yes.
Okay. Because the men's room always has a really long line. And we're like, ladies, do you see what's happening? We are waiting in line for this. And that person and I wound up working together like a year later, and it was awesome because we were there and we were like high five. It's sort of a joke, of course, but at the same time, especially 10 years ago,
Yeah.
women were maybe 10% of video game conferences, and now it's getting a lot more parity, which is awesome. But we still do the occasion, like, look at this, young ladies, we're having to stand in line in the restroom.
I love that. That's so great. What's a trend in game dev you're excited about and one you're tired of?
Goodness, I feel like this is repeating. I do really love just small teams turning some fun things around and not being overly worried about their like highest quality visual fidelity. In fact, embracing kind of the quirk of what they're doing. Like I love quirky looking, original looking games. And so therefore, like, let's stop having all the games like look like one another. I don't need more things that are the colors of mud and blood and death. Like I want more bright pink and teal games in my life, and I want them to have like remarkable things that when I look at them, I know what game I'm staring at, So that.
Oh, I love
Cool.
that too. What about coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee. Remote or in person?
Remote.
Mm. Okay.
I love in person. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think that there's some amount, but I think we overestimate there's such power at bringing people together at times. There's also so much power in trusting people and giving them the ability to live their lives with some amount of flexibility that, allows them to be in the town because their parents need more help from them, or allows them to, spend less on rent, or put their kids in the right school district, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Like, I believe in it. I think we've shown it can work. So I love my people. I love hugs. I love high fives. I love being around people. But if I'm choosing one or the other, remote, hands down.
Awesome. Early mornings or late nights?
Late nights.
Late nights. Okay. Okay. Last one. We're going to play stream, play, or avoid. Okay. What game do you like to watch streaming, or would you play streaming?
I would say story-driven games are fun in that way, like Dispatch, things like that. I like to kind of watch the way somebody else's movie is playing out. I still love like playing and with my own choices, but it is really interesting to see what other people are doing. And I like that moment of like, choice. Why would you do that? So I do like watching people play games like that. I was at Telltale, and same sort of thing. Like watching somebody else play through a Telltale game was always really cool.
Okay. And are you playing any games at the moment? And what game are you playing, if so?
I am actually playing. Goodness, yeah. This so flies in the face of everything that I just said. I have gotten back into playing Overwatch, which is like
Wow.
I'm loving it, and I'm just having a ton of fun with it. It seems to go so counter to all the other things that I've said, but I do love that sort of social side of things and jumping in with people. I think part of it is also because I have some other friends that play it, and that's probably the big reason.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And okay, what game genre or console are you avoiding, if any?
I haven't bought the new Switch yet, in part because I didn't get on the list to get it like day one, which maybe would have been like enough of that adrenaline rush. And now I'm mostly just waiting for a time when I have more games to play, because like more time to play games. Sorry. Because I love Nintendo. I think Nintendo is great. I'm getting plenty of like enjoyment currently out of my existing Switch that I haven't upgraded yet. So I will do so eventually, but right now it's not where I'm choosing to put my money.
Nice one. Okay, we are done. Thank you so much for coming on, Leah Hoyer. Do you have anything to plug? Anything you want to say to wrap up?
Well, Wimpact is the game that we're working on at Level Headed, and I'm really excited about it. It is basically an egg hunt on steroids, and you and your friends get to go together and gather up as many of these things. Your ability to get to the harder to reach ones are based on your collection of adorable creatures named Whims. And when you take them as companions, they imbue you with superpowers. So as you raise them up, they get stronger, and they will allow you to jump higher, run faster, hit harder, defend yourself, etc. So our tagline is, the more you care, the better you play. And
That's so fun.
yeah, so I love it. I'm excited about it. More will be coming out soon about when we're well along. We're doing play tests. You can come join our Discord, jump into our next play test. We'll be doing either this or the next Steam Next Fest. So
Great.
yeah. So
Awesome.
come check it out.
Oh, absolutely. And I like the fact that your tagline works the other way around as well.
The better you play, the more you care.
Love it. Awesome.
And
thank you so much, Leah.
Yeah,
And thanks
Leah.
everyone. That was Leah Hoyer. She's amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
so much to her for coming on and spending all that time with us. I hope you all enjoyed that. Love to see your comments on like what your favorite takeaway was and what you learned from it. And yeah, she's just always great to talk to. So big thanks to Leah. She's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
And now we're wrapping up now. The end of our third episode of our podcast. What conferences are coming up that you're going to, Sam?
So I mentioned at the beginning, I've got Gdansk. So DevGam at
Oh.
Gdansk coming up on the 17th to the 19th. Please say hello if you see me out there. Looking forward to it. That completes my Eastern European tour. So 2 Poland and 1
For
Croatia
now.
in a month. It's not bad going. And then after that, it's Develop. It's a big one in
Yeah,
Develop.
that's my next one, as it have been for the past few weeks. That's my next one. Looking forward to it. Haven't been for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's going to
Feel
be great to get back there.
It's brighten in the sunshine, and the only thing that can make brighten in the sunshine any better would be if there was some kind of football tournament on at the same time. That would be
Wouldn't
awesome.
that be great?
That would be awesome. That would be a great way to spend my evenings, I'm sure.
Actually, like they're just decorating Vancouver for the World Cup now because we've got
I
a
saw.
load of games on. And the Science World building, I don't know if you've ever seen the Science World building, that big
That's what I
globe
saw.
thing, it's all like decorated like a big football, soccer ball, and it looks really cool. And if you fly into Vancouver and you look up at the mountain, there's a huge flag on the mountain, like enormous. They've done a great
Really?
job decorating. Yeah, it looks great.
The approach to Vancouver is one of the nicest approaches to any airport
Oh,
anywhere, right? And
I know, it's so stunning. Like the mountain ranges, but then when
yeah,
you're circling back and you see all the islands in the
yeah,
water, it's just stunning. And that leads me to like just come to Vancouver for XDS in September if you're interested too. Like not only for the flight, but XDS conference is great. Like tickets are on sale now for developers. Get yourself down there, get learning about external development, meet a load of cool people, have some great meetings, and level up what you're doing with XDev. Go to XDS website if you're interested. If you have any questions for our guests or us for upcoming episodes, make your way over to our LinkedIn page, find one of our XDS Spark page, find one of our posts about the podcast, and feel free to add some questions to the comments, and we'll get round to them. And I think that's about it. Thank you to everyone
Thank you.
for tuning in.
Thank you again, Leah. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
We will. Thank you. See you around.
Cheers, everybody. Bye.